Hello all, so here we have a selection of tools from Banggood, a company which is kind of like a Chinese eBay or Amazon. Goods take about 8 working days to arrive in the UK from China via Banggood, which is a fair bit quicker than its rivals. Packaging can be hit and miss as a negative point, but more on that later in the vid. This is more of an overview than a detailed review, but I think it will be clear on what's good and what's not so good. You'll find all links to items shown in the description, and no, I'm not affiliated or getting paid, it's just my tuppence on what I've bought. Let's start with a couple of marking out tools which, in my view, if you bought nothing else from Banggood and just these, you won't be disappointed. The 160mm T-square with marking holes at 1mm increments and a standard speed style square for 90s and 45s. Like all the tools I'm showing, they're machined from aluminium, were accurate out of the box and work as you'd expect. The T-square marking holes start at 5mm going up to 160. The markings on the square are accurate, but somewhat pointless when the stop is in place, which offsets the markings about 20mm. This is a centre finder for round and square stock. You could likely use it to mark centre on round stock up to about 90mm diameter or a 4x4 timber. It's a nicely machined little lump. True out of the box, there's potential for resetting if need be via the Allen bolts. Next up, another square, made by Drill Pro. It's machined from one solid lump of aluminium and just fantastic as a setting tool for internal 90 corners, layout and checking blades and fences for square. The holes make it a great aid for corner clamping too. This combi square is a popular tool on Banggood, it seems. Available in 3 sizes from 160 to 300mm I think. This is a small one. Has a chunky aluminium rule and body with brass knobs for tightening down. Really tactile in the hand and has a small hole at the rule tip for pencil marking. On the body are markings from 0 to 40mm. Only the 0 is useful as far as I can tell. What the other 39mm are on there for, I've no idea. To use the pencil hole, you'll need to offset your measurements by 5mm. The body would have been better served having an extra 0 for this. Worth saying that the pencil hole on all these tools are best served by a mechanical pencil with a 0.5mm lead. Another bug with this tool is when loose, there's a little play. This doesn't self-align like on normal combi squares when tightened. Instead you have to push the rule to the body, then tighten. It's also essentially a one-sided tool. Both these points are a bit of a pain really, but generally a nice tool, quirks aside. Next up is this dovetail marking set. I love cutting me some dovetails. These marking guides give you 4 slope ratios from 1 in 5 to 1 in 8, each made from 2 pieces of machined aluminium. I found them just a breeze to use. You just measure out and mark at your baseline, move the guide up to your mark and mark the dovetail slope. Banggood have some really neat and innovative marking gauges, but here I have a pretty standard dual marking gauge of the marking wheel variety. Just a really nice tool. 2 steel shafts with accurate inch and millimetre marking on each side with replaceable wheel blades. A wide aluminium body, which I find so much better than the more usual round brass type for holding against the surface, and topped with 2 brass knobs for tightening down. The markings are pretty accurate if you make sure your measurement mark is showing on the workpiece side of the body. When all done, the blades can be completely housed in the body. This is a dinky 50 by 100mm corner clamping square. Might be useful if you had 4 of them and small clamps to match if you're assembling small drawers or some such, but so far completely useless to me except for winding mates up when they ask to borrow a square. That alone has been worth the $5 I paid for it, to be honest. This is a pair of hold down clamps. They come with a sliding T-nut, bolt and star knob for use with 3/4 inch track. I also used the T-nut and bolt for one of my feather boards. As clamps, they do what they should well and have a lovely kind of squishy silicone non-marking protector. They also work quite well as irregular corner clamps, like inside of a hexagon. Might demonstrate that at some point in the future. It was bloody cold when I filmed this, I must say. This next widget is a multi-function socket. A bit of a gimmick if I'm honest, with shocking DIY style anodizing. It comes with a 1/2 inch to hex adapter and features sprung pins inside which allow you to tighten a nut with anything from a 7mm to 19mm head without changing socket. The sprung pins mean you can use it to tighten or loosen irregular shaped items too, like a wing nut or a hook. Careful with the hooks though, this was my 5th attempt at screwing one in. Ouch. It's okay with bolt heads, but don't think the pins will allow you to apply any serious torque. They won't. A useful odd jobber maybe, but not a replacement for an actual socket set. This is a vertical drilling guide. I find this pretty useful, helping to get near as damn it a straight hole, something that is usually a bit of a crapshoot when freehanding with a drill. This set came with 5 to 10mm bushings, an Allen key and 2 grub screws. You only need 1 grub screw to tighten down, so nice of them to supply a spare. You just slot in the size bushing you want, tighten down the grub and get to drilling. Easy enough to spot your mark through the legs of the frame, but ideally I would have liked some line markings on the frame. Would have been really helpful. There's a whole host of doweling jigs on Banggood, and this is the one I picked up. Designed to allow you to, say, transfer the dowel position of a shelf to the inside of a carcass piece. You line up the protruding dowel of your shelf to the appropriate slot in the jig. The jig has hole centre markings around the outside to help with alignment. The slots and drill guide bushings are set at 6, 8 and 10mm. Really wish you had the option to have all 3 bushings the same size for multiple holes, but alas not. It's a dowel at a time jig, this one, shame. A less fancy looking but more effective way of transferring dowel positions is these dowel marking pins. You put them into an existing dowel hole, then meet the pins to the piece to be drilled. I bought 2 sets allowing me to transfer 4 dowels at once. The set comes with 6, 8, 10 and 12mm pins. They're made from steel and the fit in your existing dowel holes is really quite snug. This impressive looking beast I can't get out of the box is a centre finding drill guide for marking and drilling along the edge of a timber or board. It comes with 6, 8 and 10mm drill guide bushings and comes with 3 aluminium pins in the same size range to act as a locator if necessary. With no adjustability, use for these is pretty limited, but the option is there if you need it. There are 2 pencil holes between the drill guides, one large for a standard pencil or pen, one small for a fine mechanical pencil. The positioning fences are held with 2 brass knobs which look nice, but frustratingly don't tighten down in such a way as to allow you to lock the fences. I'm sure I can doctor this, we'll see. It also features a stop, which is equal parts irritating and useful. Like the combi square shown earlier, the stop features 0 to 40mm markings that relate to pretty much nothing. 0 to what? Not to the first drill hole or anything so obvious. Plus, the indicator can only reach up to 25mm, so why the extra 15mm of markings? Very odd. Regardless, the guide does still prove useful and allows repeatable centred hole drilling. One last gripe is that the minimum board or material size is around 15mm. You'd have to shoe the fences for a 9 or 12mm board. This is a set of 2 router template radius guides meant for use with router tables, allowing you to machine perfect 10, 15, 20 and 30mm corner radii between the set. They're frankly brilliant, and now I have a router table and this guide set, every corner gets a radius whether it needs it or not. Use the lips on the guide to square to your workpiece edge, hold in place with your finger in the centre hole and route away. Highly recommended these. So here we have a mitre gauge with an aluminium extrusion fence I added and a flip stop. The all aluminium flip stops come with fixings for 3/4 inch track. As I used 20mm profile with a 6mm slot, I had to butcher this flip stop to fit. As you can see, I've ground away the guide on the body down to 6mm to fit it and fitted a 6mm sliding T-bar. I had to re-drill the hole too, originally in the centre of the body, now slightly towards the front face, so it aligns flush with the face of my fence. I also had to space out the ratcheting lever with a few washers too. It works great now though. You'll find several mitre gauges on Banggood. There's a particularly nice looking steel bodied one that looks like a copy of the Incra but for about £35, which I must admit I was tempted by, but as you can see I plumped for this thing of beauty. This is the all aluminium affair with a brass locking pin for common mitre angles and a large blue anodised handle which is also used for locking down without the pin. Despite the extra markings on the indicator, it's not any kind of vernier scale, not that it needs to be for my work. The mitre gauge came with an unusual sliding T-nut size, but I soon swapped these out for ones compatible with my profile. Despite this mitre gauge arriving in a plastic bag, yes, a bag, and the bar having a minor downward bend as a result, I had it straightened out in no time, and was pleased to see the thing was bang on, straight out of the bag. Used on my workbench allows me to use with the router table and as a fence and angle guide with my track saw. Marvellous. If you made it through to here, well done. I hope I've cleared up what might be worthy buys and what might not, and remember, despite the quirks of some of these tools, I've got an entire drawer full for the price of one 300mm square from Woodpeckers. I don't think they're as well thought out as Woodpeckers tools, but their pricing and general quality certainly makes them worth consideration. Thanks for watching.